Muy buenos días a todas y todos. Bienvenidas,
Good
bienvenidos
morning,
al
everyone, and welcome to the second day of the FAO Transforma 2023 Fair. For those of you who saw me or not yesterday, my name is Matias Reeves, and I'm a regional expert in resource mobilization from the FAO Regional Office for Latin America and the Caribbean. And I'll be with you today and tomorrow, Friday, for the second Fair of Inspiring Experiences, FAO Transforma 2023. Thank you very much for your presence, for being connected this early. Yesterday, we had the chance of learning about 5 experiences related to um, 2 of the 4 FAO betters for the Latin America and the Caribbean region. The projects were related to better nutrition and better environment. Um, for today, we want to continue to make visible and stimulate knowledge management at FAO. This is why we will learn about other 5 experiences which are linked to better support, a category that we have implemented in this fair to show the progress that we have made as an organization to carry out projects more efficiently and also experiences linked to better production. Today, we will have great experiences that we will put in common to highlight, comment, and of course, to ask questions. We want this space to be a space of exchange and learning. So you're all more than welcome to post your comments in the Zoom question box and the transmission of the event on YouTube and also on our Twitter of FAO Americas, where you can also comment. And this is an invitation as well. You can comment with hashtag Feria FAO Transforma. Okay, without further ado, I'll introduce Felipe de la Raechea, who is the leader of the FAO Knowledge Management Unit for Latin America and the Caribbean, and who will be joining us during the presentation of the experience related to better support. Felipe, good morning. Good morning, Matias. Thank you very much for your introduction. Really, just to start this intervention, I'd like to tell you that I am pleased to moderate this very interesting discussion that we will have today, this morning, that of course will mean that we'll learn a lot about how we are working internally at the regional office regarding specifically the best support category. Today, it is essential that the organization is able to observe and think about itself and to be able to develop and promote its challenge and mandates. For this reason, we wanted to highlight at this time internal transformations that are being generated to strengthen the institution in addressing the proposed areas. And although all of this very much connected with the programmatic areas. In this category of better support, as we know, will know very well, it is not a part of the official for betters of FAO, but it is an essential part of our continuous improvement as an organization in order to better support projects. Before continuing, and I'd like to remind you about the format that we will follow today. As in yesterday, the presentations of the initiatives in the case of better support, are aimed at highlighting the main results and impacts of each project in a 2 to 4 minute video. After this video, and in a lightning talk type of format, 5 minutes, the teams will deepen in the key points of each experience, and then our cooperation partners will also have a space to deliver their valuable contributions. At around 11:30, we will open up for questions and comments about this and the other experiences, and you may ask your questions in the way Matias just explained. So without further ado, let's get it started. Let me show you a video of the initiative that explains the regional initiative Mejor Soporte, which is FAO's network of managers for Latin America and the Caribbean, which is driven from the field program of FAO's office. Let's see the video.
La red de gerentas y gerentes de FAO en América Latina y el Caribe surgió en julio de 2022 como un espacio para fortalecer las relaciones, el diálogo y el aprendizaje entre quienes dirigen proyectos en todas las áreas de acción de la FAO.
Con más de 200 integrantes, la red congrega a responsables para la ejecución de $700 millones en proyectos FAO en toda la región.
Las y los gerentes son los que tienen contacto directo en los territorios y comunidades, son los que abren camino y producen cambios.
Son quienes día a día enfrentan los desafíos, las exigencias de los gobiernos, de nuestros socios y también las necesidades de nuestros beneficiarios.
En su primer año de vida, la red ha organizado 17 encuentros para compartir conocimientos, oportunidades y buenas prácticas.
Para los proyectos de cooperación Sur-Sur, esta red es un excelente espacio para el intercambio de informaciones técnicas y de gestión.
En los encuentros no solo se abordan temas técnicos, sino también habilidades blandas como el manejo de equipos, la solución de conflictos y la comunicación asertiva. La red ha servido también para reconocer el trabajo de nuestras gerentas y gerentes de proyectos, que son esenciales para que los objetivos de la FAO se conviertan en acciones concretas y transformadoras. La red de gerentas y gerentes de nuestra región es una experiencia sin precedentes en la FAO, una herramienta de construcción de soluciones innovadoras en conexión directa con los territorios y con nuestros beneficiarios, para no dejar a nadie atrás.
Of course, this is a great initiative, and of course, we want to deepen with those that have made it possible to do so. We invited the representatives of the initiative, Pablo Honeyman, who's a senior consultant of the Mas Bosques project, and Nadia Veloso, coordinator of the Consolidation of School Feeding Program project at FAO for Latin America and the Caribbean, to tell us about the most relevant aspects of this great initiative. Also, we are joined by Karina Crespo, who is the coordinator of FAO training, and Evie Ortiz, she is the field officer of programs in the region, who have been also part of this program. Colleagues, the floor is yours. Good morning, everyone, all our friends that are connected to the platform and those who are attending. Thank you very much for the opportunity. My name is Najla Veloso, and I am Regional Coordinator of School Feeding in Latin America and the Caribbean within the context of the Brazil FAO cooperation. Today, together with Pablo, we are going to introduce this innovative managers network at FAO. I'd like to start by telling you a little bit more compared to what we saw on the video, which is that I am part of this large professionals network that have similar interests in this platform, and that they are with us. We are all working together, telling ourselves that we are important, that we have this very important job of sharing knowledge. This network has more than 200 members. 51% are men and 49% are women. And this network also allows us to share experiences, to establish dialogue, and also to be in a space of trust where we can even establish dialogue regarding our own work-related conflicts every day. What can you tell me, Paulo, who is also part of the network? Good morning. Yes, we are very happy now of being part of this network. As a project managers, we feel that we are being recognized and to understand that we are the face of a project in the territories, and we engage with the beneficiaries and all the members of the teams. When this network was created, the idea was to strengthen the benefits of this network to address the different needs among different projects in the region. And we have made progress undoubtedly in that regard. This is an instance that allows us to give evidence of this role and to take the mandate of FAO in all territories where we have an impact. We are the ones who are in direct contact with the beneficiaries of the projects, and that is a major challenge. This network gives us the chance of strengthening the programmatic approach through articulation between the technical, the field work, and regional initiatives, across the board topics, and of course, all of us managers that coordinate the actions in the territories. Pablo, did you know that we are the first and only network in FAO globally operating? And that we as project managers are in charge of almost 300 projects, and we also manage $925 million in our budget. That is a lot. And just as you said, we have a huge responsibility because really we work with people, we do all the field work, we represent the institutions and the partners, managing bureaucracy, dealing, trying to look for the articulation for all the work at FAO with many other stakeholders, institutions, and governments in order to favor these policies or the policies that we work with. Pablo, dear friends, look at this picture. I don't know if Javiera was able to show this. This is our team, our team of managers, and all the colleagues that are behind this network, organizing colleagues from FAO training, and trying to innovate and to make this space something that will uh, feel our souls and bodies. And remember when we started this network, Pablo? Yes, Najla. I knew about this because of prior discussions, but I remember when we attended at the launch in July last year. At the time, we were able to establish dialogue with several of the members that you can see on this picture, and we've been able to share after a few months. And since then, we started dreaming and thinking of this network and to and also building this network with topics that are useful for us managers, project managers. And at the time, I remember there were four main requirements: is that we needed a space to share our experiences of setting up these projects, some of them very large, which are complex as well in rural areas with indigenous population, in articulation with the governments, etc. A second topic, which was to build trust among the teams and to address conflicts in the teams or in the relationship with the donors or the governments, discussing about operating administrative gaps, which is our major challenges to implement large-scale projects, and also the issue about tools to introduce all topics across the board regarding safeguards, monitoring, gender approach that are key in this implementation. That is so true. However, but it's not only about that. Then facilitators conducted a survey trying to find out what would be the requirements and to facilitate and also cover our needs. So 21 events have already taken place, and we also have contact with more than 880 people in these dialogues. And just to give you a note, this week or this month of September in Brazil is the month of mental health. And I believe we are talking about mental health also when we talk about managers. Pablo, could you comment how is this network supporting us in our specific work? I think it provides us with different types of support, but if I had to summarize it at different aspects. First, which is an instance in which we can share knowledge and to share amongst us and others. Second, we support each other in building innovative solutions to problems or opportunities or difficulties that arise during the implementation of the project. We also engage in a number of meetings on Fridays that we're not always able to attend. But when you get there, it's a very comfortable environment to share. In this way, our work becomes more collaborative and efficient. And finally, we have this instance to share with our peers the different projects, and we get to know each other. We become familiar with each other more and more, and we know who to contact when we encounter problems or specific requirements. So I wanted to ask you, Najla, if you can tell the audience and who are not part of the network how this network works.
Not very simple, Pablo, friends. We work through a Teams account, and unfortunately, we're we've become quite familiar with this as a result of the pandemic, but through this platform, we share documents, information regarding events, etc. And it's also important to mention that this is not something extra, it's not something in addition to our workload, but rather this is an opportunity where we can discuss issues that are of common interest. Pablo, I would also like to tell you, or actually, I would like to ask you, what are some of the key lessons learned that you think we have had with regard to this manager-to-manager encounter? I would have to say that first and foremost, we have been able to build a dynamic tool to become more aware and to study better certain topics. We have also been able to meet with managers that have not been involved in the past, and it's a good opportunity to show them content related to projects. We have also made the managers more familiar with the various technical and administrative areas for solutions, and also to share problems and solutions related to project management. Excellent, that's true. Thank you. In fact, a manager the other day told me that he said this has been helpful, so now I feel part of a team. We have people working from different countries and different offices around the world, and this network has been instrumental in allowing them to have more free-flowing contact with their peers. Yes, we have seen that step by step, this network has gained more impetus and has improved. And next year, we will continue to do more of this and grow and create more opportunities for cross-cutting activities and to address FAO safeguards. These cross-cutting issues, mainstream issues, have been very helpful. The colleagues have mentioned that this platform, this space has been very productive, specifically for soft skills, which are extremely necessary for those of us in charge of coordinating large, complex projects. Also, we have another challenge, which is to organize and systematize these good practices. And to that end, the network, the organization, is discussing the best possible way to do this and to work together, because we do not want to lose all the lessons learned thus far. So as far as challenges are concerned, I would have to say there are many with regard to securing this network going forward. I think one of the challenges is garnering more participation for networking, for the technical program, etc. And let's not forget that we are part of this organization, and we can share ideas, methodologies, findings, etc., and ensure that all of this knowledge does not fall by the wayside. I would like to leave you with the following thought, Pablo and dear friends. Now, innovative solutions exist somewhere around the world in space and time, but in order for these to be implemented and exist, we need 3 I's: interest, ideas, and initiative. And I think all of these come from within, from people, and the real driver behind organizations are people. So this managerial network has enabled those who were invisible in the institution in the past to be visible and to have a name and a face and to better understand the different institutions, partners, and etc. So with that, I would like to recognize all of the organizers of this initiative, as well as extending our most sincere appreciation. Thank you. Thank you, dear colleagues. Greetings.
Está contigo, Felipe.
Are you there, Felipe? Yes, one moment. I'm trying to activate my camera. In the meantime, while I wait for the administrator to give me access, I would like to congratulate both of you, Nalza and Pablo. This was very interesting. The Regional Office Knowledge Management Group has been following this quite closely. We have had meetings with Cariña and others to understand the project better, and it's very interesting. So I just wanted to commend you for this achievement. Now, prior to moving forward with the Q&A, I wanted to show a video to all of you, a video regarding better support that we have prepared for you. So here we go. All right then, once again, thank you. I would also like to thank Javiera Suarez, who is a key individual in charge of this initiative. She's also in charge of moderating this network and plays a very key role. I apologize for not mentioning her early on, so thank you. And now let's move on with the discussion period. We have received several different questions. Let me take a peek at those that I have received. So setting up this managerial network has been quite successful. There are many members, but it corresponds to a very specific profile, as I understand it. So the question is, how have the lessons learned shared on the network, how are the managers able to trickle these down to their team members? That's a really good question. And then also, what indirect impacts do you think have resulted from this network throughout the organization? Are you asking us this question or Javiera? It's a question open to the entire team. Pablo, would you like to begin? Sure. Thank you, Nadia. This is a very important question because in the end, we are the visible face of a project with more than 150 individuals behind the scenes working diligently. So the lessons learned from this network do need to be transferred to the rest of the team members. And that's part of what we do. It's not always easy, particularly when we work with individuals who are located and geographically in different areas. It's not always so easy to have free-flowing communications with them. Definitely, it's a challenge. And I would have to say, in my experience, this is not something I do systematically and constantly. Perhaps this is one of the challenges the network has to tackle to figure out how to better trickle down the lessons learned. We do apply the lessons learned at various meetings, the lessons we learn from the examples shared by our colleagues. For example, what you mentioned earlier about soft skills, in my personal case, I have received a great deal of feedback on the Friday sessions, and these have been helpful for me to solve certain conflicts. And I have employed these skills with other members of the team who have come to me with their needs. So that's what I can share from my viewpoint. I would also like to mention that we, as coordinators, have a difficult role at times. Therefore, we are constantly figuring out how to do a better job. We are constantly looking for new solutions, innovations, knowledge that may support us in our task. And I just wanted to underscore this, that I've been working a great deal with mental health issues, and we do need to take care of ourselves. For example, I really liked a conversation regarding post-pandemic resilience. That is a testimony that I have given to showcase how human beings are holistic and how it's important to pay attention to that. I think that's very valuable in my opinion. Thank you for those interesting remarks, Pablo and Nalda. We received a lot of questions directly related to what you just mentioned. In other words, how we can find more concrete ways to bring about this exchange of good practices and knowledges on the network. Pablo, you referred to soft skills, and I agree that is extremely important, particularly today when we live in a very dynamic context where we work with a lot of different individuals. And I have another question here. Would you allow me to take the floor? Yes, of course. First of all, I just wanted to thank Nadia and Pablo for such a wonderful presentation on this managerial network initiative. Everyone who has an FAO account can actually use this network. You do not need to be a project manager per se, because all of the outreach individuals and everyone working in a desk job in the end is partly responsible for project management. So naming this the managerial network was on purpose. We wanted to showcase the project managerial role, giving them greater visibility and making it easier for them to manage their projects with greater ease. And I think one of the positive impacts that we've seen of this within FAO is that the role of FAO will be reviewed. The role of FAO in the projects and the role of project managers will also be reviewed. So that has also led to an internal process to provide project managers with more autonomy. So that's the in-house policy side. But as far as participation is concerned, anyone who has an FAO email account can participate in this network. So this is my way of extending an open invitation to all of you to participate. Thank you, Evie. I have another question. I think we have time. Okay, so this block is called Better Support, and this is not part of the strategic framework, as you know. It's not one of the 4 betters, but the specific question is, how do you think this network has contributed to strengthening FAO's programmatic perspective? In other words, what specific actions have you been able to point out that have resulted in this space and another space that have contributed to strengthening the programmatic area of FAO, both technical and administrative actions? Let me begin by saying that I work in a specific area, which is school feeding. And this, although this is related to the 4 betters, we are more closely tied to better nutrition. So for me, in particular, when I learn of innovative actions carried out under different projects, I always try to find the best way to incorporate these, to adapt these for my needs. And it's important to have adaptation mechanisms that will allow us to implement different actions, because we are here to address national school feeding policies and different mechanisms. And our role, in part, involves coordinating our teams, organizing our teams. For example, there was an intervention related to I wasn't part of this, but my colleague was. And my colleague was saying, I saw something that we could implement. It's not that we're copying, but what we hear, if we hear something worthy and successful in another FAO area, we like to take those initiatives and adapt them to our needs. I also mentioned that we are so busy and we have so many responsibilities today in order to meet the annual operational plan requirements in other areas. Sometimes we just need to sit down and think about how we can improve ourselves and what we do. So there are many methodological solutions, knowledge, and innovations that we may continue to share.
Just to say, Felipe, that supplementing what Nadia says in the sense that in these instances, I believe there are very relevant inputs for the programmatic approach. Because first, you detect potential synergies among the initiatives, something that we're always asked to do. But as Nadia says, sometimes it's not easy to do it every day, to be able to connect with those synergies, and also producing inputs for other projects in the portfolio with a programmatic approach on the portfolio. So this instance of meeting in the network, I believe it's a permanent source of inputs to think about the project portfolios, in which the programmatic approach is a very valuable method. Karina? Thank you, Felipe. I wanted to remind everyone to think of when this network was an idea. When we discussed with Evie, we said, okay, how do we organize this? By regional initiative, by thematic pillar, etc. And Evie said something that still rings a bell to me. She said, out in the field, everything happens at the same time. Let's not break it down. Let's have them join that space and them to propose how to do things. And I believe that is the first step for a programmatic approach, to build it together. So from that point of view, from that starting point, of course, there was uncertainty because how do you do this? Where's the recipe? What's the methodology? And it was a major challenge. And little by little, we built this. We asked and we saw what was the team's opinions. And it worked. Evie also said at some point, usually among them, they do not have space to discuss, to agree, to think things together. Let's build that space so that in an informal way, this programmatic approach is also built. And so also we started working together with the technical program team. This year, besides the discussions from last year, besides also the soft skills space, we have the technical team joining. So this is yet another push so that amongst teams, we have a programmatic approach and so that this becomes richer and strengthened. Now, the next step is to build a methodology to see how we make all these ideas a reality. All this that happens on Friday meetings that are so rich. And I believe everybody knows that we all try to attend and we make this space richer and richer.
Perfecto, muchas gracias, Karina. Bueno, y equipo por la intervención.
Thank you, Karina, and thanks to the team for your Pablo, Nashla, once again, Karina, Javiera, Evie. Thank you for being part of this segment, for making this discussion richer, and for clarifying certain aspects regarding how the network operates, which is a very interesting initiative. Also, this is something that is connected to us as a team. It is a great example of knowledge management, and at the same time, we are very motivated to promote and to help you in the development and the expansion of the work you do. So, congratulations again. Let me repeat that it is very important to achieve technical improvement for managers in the region. And at the same time, this initiative contributes directly, as you said, to the development of soft skills for project implementation, exchange of and good practices, make managers and their projects visible, strengthening the programmatic approach of the organization in the technical and operational, and enhance the articulations among different teams to respond to the needs of the agents. Thank you very much for your time. We are right on time. So we are going to take a 5-minute break. Please remember that you can follow us on our social networks and continue this conversation using hashtag FAO Transforma. See you in a few minutes.
returned from our break, the fair FAO Transforma of Inspiring Ideas. In this blog, we were able to learn about the experience related to better support, a category that we created at this fair to highlight the work of the teams and their efforts to integrate FAO improvements. It is essential to make visible not only the efforts and interventions that FAO develops in direct contact with beneficiaries, but also the internal processes and efforts that FAO promotes in order to continue improving the lives of the population. So now it's time to move on to the next group of experiences, which are framed within better production. For this exchange, we will be joined by Ana Posas as the moderator. She's the Agricultural Officer of the FAO Regional Office, Agricultural Officer of the FAO Regional Office for Latin America and the Caribbean. Thank you, Ana, for being here today to present the experiences related to better production. Let's see the better production video. Go ahead, Ana. Good morning, Matias, and everyone else joining us here today. It is an honor for me to be here in this space, which is devoted to exploring and discussing the best practices and progress in the field of sustainable food production. At FAO, we are committed to developing efficient, inclusive, and resilient supply chains. And today, at the second version of the FAO Transform Fair, we will have the opportunity to learn about outstanding projects that actually exemplify this mission. In the context of FAO's global strategy, the area of better production stands out. This strategic component addresses multiple dimensions, from the promotion of sustainable businesses and the revitalization of aquatic food systems, agricultural, forestry, and fisheries food systems, to the integral improvement of human, animal, and ecosystem health. It also seeks to ensure that small producers have fair access to resources and technologies. Today, we will have the opportunity to hear presentations related to transformative projects carried out in different Latin American and Caribbean countries, ranging from innovation and value chains in countries such as Belize, Guyana, St. Lucia, and Dominica, including the use of digital technologies for agroecology in Chile. We will also learn about initiatives in fish production in Colombia, which have an important social component for the project's role in reducing local conflict, and projects to better contribute to small-scale fisheries in Costa Rica, highlighting the important role of women as leaders. Each of these projects demonstrates how sustainable and resilient solutions aligned with the SDGs can be created, and how we can bring about a significant transformation in our food production practices. For this first block, we will hear two experiences. And similar to yesterday, we will show a video with remarks from the teams and the resource partners that have supported these initiatives. Following this, we will begin a first round of Q&A, and after that, we will share two more experiences associated with better production. And then we will close again with a second round of Q&A. Please remember that you can leave your questions in the Zoom questions section or in the YouTube chat on FAO America's website. We also have simultaneous interpreting services, so be sure to choose the correct language channel. To begin, we will start with the initiatives making up this block, which have innovative methodologies and lessons learned to share and exchange with the region. I would like to request that the panelists please adhere to the time constraints. I will let you know when you have 1 minute left, and you will have a total of 5 minutes for your remarks. As a result, allow me to introduce you to the first project that highlights the importance of technological innovation in the transition to more sustainable and resilient agriculture. This has been developed in collaboration with the GAF, the Ministry of Agriculture of Chile, and FAO. PREDIAP is the name of this project, and PREDIAP is a tool that merges digital technology with local wisdom to offer customized and territory-centered solutions. Therefore, I would like to show you a video.
En el territorio Cordillera Pehuenche y Alto Andino Precordillera Norte, hombres y mujeres trabajan la tierra para una mejor cosecha de sus cultivos, guardar reservas de alimento para sus animales y la alimentación del grupo familiar. El proyecto Sistemas Importantes del Patrimonio Agrícola Nacional, SIPAN, son agrosistemas habitados por comunidades que viven en una relación estrecha con el territorio, caracterizado por una biodiversidad agrícola notable, conocimientos tradicionales, culturas y paisajes invaluables, lo que contribuye a la soberanía y seguridad alimentaria.
El proyecto SIPAN, el cual hemos venido trabajando como institución hace un par de años junto a FAO, nos ha marcado un hito importante dentro de la institución, dado que las herramientas que nos ha entregado nos ha permitido tener una visión más global de la situación de nuestros usuarios y usuarias.
En este contexto, se ha desarrollado PREDIAP, una herramienta basada en la tecnología de transición agroecológica para la agricultura familiar campesina que facilita esta transformación en predios que son parte de la red SIPAN a través de un diagnóstico de cada territorio mediante un formulario que se puede completar con o sin acceso a Internet.
Cuando nosotros como equipo y MindUp, cuando trabajamos con la PREDIAP, nos ayuda a tener un objetivo. Hacemos el plan de trabajo comunidad, ya sabemos dónde están más débiles.
La forma de utilización o de implementación ha sido a través de capacitaciones a extensionistas rurales que han ido a los campos a tomar la información, a tomar la data, desde los principios agroecológicos hasta las dimensiones agroecológicas.
La aplicación PREDIAP permite a funcionarios técnicos acceder a la información de los predios. La plataforma incorpora distintos niveles de diagnóstico, entregando indicadores que permiten establecer prioridades de trabajo en áreas como diversidad, manejo ecológico de suelo o manejo ecológico de plagas y enfermedades. Esta información les permite diseñar actividades específicas para las necesidades identificadas, impulsando modelos de producción agroecológica en los predios que son parte del proyecto.
Nos están enseñando a ser biopreparados para dejar de usar cosas químicas en nuestros campos. Entonces, estamos haciendo experimentos, se puede decir, para poder ver qué resultados dan. Así es que ahí vamos a ver, yo creo que en un lazo de 1 año, 2 años, el cambio.
Son muchas las familias que viven y dependen de la agricultura familiar campesina a través del trabajo de la tierra y los productos que ella entrega. La aplicación de un plan de manejo adecuado hacia una transición agroecológica permite seguir conservando el patrimonio agroalimentario y biodiverso de los territorios de la red SIPAN.
Very interesting experiences that show how you can use easy formats and training that will benefit agroecology of family farmers. Allow me to introduce you to Evelyn Osorio, who's a coordinator of the Cordillera Pehuenche territory of the SIPAN project. Evelyn, you have 5 minutes. Go ahead. Thank you, Ana. Allow me to share my screen. We can see it. Please put it in presentation mode. Greetings to everyone. On behalf of the SIPAN team, today I would like to refer to our experience with PREDIAP. This is a diagnostic app that allows us to transition toward better agroecology. So we have a manual that is called the Manual of Agroecological Transition for rural family or peasant family farming. And the app allows us to assess a diagnostic or an assessment, to have an assessment of each farm, whether the farm has or does not have access to internet, and then you can upload this to the cloud later. Now, this application allows to provide guidelines to the outreach team to identify weaknesses at each farm, and the technical teams are able to have a full X-ray, if you will, of the farm. The video referred to how we went from an analog methodology that we can see in the manual to a web-based solution that one can access via cell phone or a tablet, and it addresses two key levels. One is the first level, which is agroecological principles. There are 6 concepts here: biodiversity, recycling, etc. And then the second level is the various dimensions of production management. These dimensions are much more sophisticated, including soil quality, soil management, health and vitality of crops, etc. And there are a series of questions related to each level, and then these when you answer the question, you basically categorize your situation from 1 to 10. 1 to 3 is deficient, 4 to 6, moderate, 4 to 7, moderate, 8 to 10, optimal. And this is a very complete process that we have rolled out with pilot farms with our technicians in the field. And these pilot farms have allowed us to identify the different dimensions that we will be rating for the future and for the farms. Here you can see a bit better the actual panel. This is where you can create an account, and then you have access to the form. You can answer the questions and have draft versions. And once you access the questionnaires, you can fill in the basic information related to the farmer and the region, the operational unit, the GPS coordinates, the main activity carried out by the farmer, because, by the way, we work primarily with peasant rural family farmers, and the activities are various, including artisanal activities or livestock or farming. And then you can fill out the form, you can save this as a draft or complete the form. And here you can see the link for this app. Also wanted to mention that this has been very practical. That is moving from the analog methodology to this application, because in the field we have been able to gather information across the entire farm, not just at the vegetable garden or what's going on with the animals individually, but we have been able to address the entire farm with the outreach individuals and the technicians, and to figure out where there has been a high level of erosion or where they have specific vulnerabilities. So essentially, this allows us to have a complete X-ray of the farm and to dialogue with the farmers. We know that they have the traditional knowledge, and we have learned more about the traditional practices that they employ. And in this specific case, we have been able to engage constantly with the different players. And then once the form is entirely filled out, you can either download the information in PDF format, which has the basic information on the farmer. And you can also have 2 spider web type figures. The first one on the left is the first level diagnostic, and the second one on the right is the second level diagnostic, which is much more detailed. Here you can see production, etc. What's the purpose of this? Well, you can either download or print the PDF and work on it work on the matters directly with the farmer. And when you have where you have the weakest areas, you can draw up an action plan with concrete activities and a schedule. You can break these down into short, mid, long-term activities. And so the idea is to address all the various weak dimensions. You have 1 minute left. At first, one of our major challenges was being able to measure the farm level and territorial level biodiversity status, and this technology has been very helpful to resolve that. We also have a presentation of the results of the administrators panel at the territorial level. I also want to mention that PREDIAP is a tool, but there is a exhaustive methodology behind scenes. Here we have a picture of an expert in agroecology who has conducted training with the outreach team members on the methodology, on how to move from the analog methodology to this PREDIAP technology. And I, again, wanted to thank all the team members because we have been doing this for 2 years now, and they have helped us to move from the analog methodology to working with this app. They have helped us understand where we have made mistakes. And we also know a lot of these regions where we work, they simply don't have access to internet. So that has been one of the major challenges. We wanted to make sure that the app could be used without internet. And we started working with pilot farms, and thanks to those results, we were able to design better field work actions with the outreach officers, and then we were able to replicate the pilot farm experience at other farms. And this methodology is implemented in the SIPAN districts. There's 12 of these, and then the Pehuenche area, the Alto Biobío area, and other mountainous regions. And now we are going to apply this to the entire Araucanía region in Chile. So I don't have much more time, but I just wanted to quickly point out some of the activities that were carried out at the pilot farms as a result of the preliminary assessment. For example, we installed ditches for runoff to prevent erosion. We also planted native trees and traditional fruit-bearing trees. We also worked on these, what we call these bio preparations with bokashi, and working with seaweed and other tools, and we set up some electric fences, etc. In order to wrap up, I just wanted to mention that, again, PREDIAP is a tool that allows us to have agricultural practices that allow us to transition towards agroecological practices. And we have this social, organizational interaction involving the technical teams, the farmers, the outreach officers. A lot of these areas that we serve are very remote, and so because we work with them in the field, we have ongoing training per se, and we also aim to have a more robust territorial network and to make sure that this evolves and remains over time at the farm level, at the territorial level, and this can be considered an innovative process and ongoing improvement. I would like to conclude by thanking all of the teams that have been a part of this process, and to mention that we are constantly learning. This is, as I mentioned, an ongoing improvement process, and it's key because we all are facing the challenge of climate change, and agroecological tools, or this agroecological transition, is a key tool to better face climate change. That's my presentation. Thank you, Ana.
Thank you, Evelyn. If you can share, in order to supplement Evelyn's presentation, I'd like to invite Pablo González, a representative of the Ministry of Agriculture of Chile, to share his perspective regarding the use of PREDIAP. Pablo, you have 5 minutes. Please know that we running short of time. Thank you, Ana. Hope you can hear me well. Good morning, everyone. Here from Chile and from southern Chile, from Araucanía. As the regional INDAP director, I'd like to share with you how, as INDAP, how we have applied PREDIAP in the work of INDAP specifically. And for that, I'd like to tell you that PREDIAP is part of the participatory 2023-2030 INDAP strategy, because it gives rise to the different guidelines and the different strategic plans that INDAP has in each one of the regions. If we go to the next slide, I can share that the agroecologic transition and sustainability plan is the blanket plan for Araucanía, to which outreach, financial assistance, or the different types of incentives are connected, provided by INDAP as peasants' family farming incentive institution. This agroecologic transition and sustainability plan is conditioned or is part of the framework of climate change, and mainly agroecologic transition processes as adaptation measures to climate change. The agroecologic transition and sustainability plan has 5 objectives. I'm going to mention only 2 of them, in which PREDIAP is being applied today in Araucanía. Objective number 4 talks about setting up agroecologic initiatives from INDAP instruments. We have more than 30 tools or instruments, which are basically incentives, technical assistance, rural outreach, and financial assistance. And the idea is for PREDIAP to operate in some of these initiatives, which are the agroecologic initiatives that take place thanks to this tool. In order to do that, we have suggested to set up agroecologic lighthouses. That comes as an initiative from several people who have worked there. Agustin Infante, Carlos Venegas support the idea. Professor Artieri and others have contributed, in which the idea of this agroecologic lighthouse should take place in the plot of a farmer that works with INDAP, in which agroecologic principles are applied. So it is fundamental to try to establish a diagnostic of how those agroecologic principles take place in these lighthouses. So the use of PREDIAP was the diagnostic tool used in order to set up those plots that applied to become agroecologic lighthouses, and therefore we are trying to detect the gaps in the implementation of the plot redesign based on factors or principles that are weaker in that plot. The regional proposal and the regional goal is to reach 100 plots as agroecologic lighthouses, and that's why we applied these diagnostic tools to all of them. These are the stages of the processes of the agroecologic school lighthouses. We had more than 100 applicants, and every year we will grow by 32 lighthouses. We have 32 districts and municipalities, and those 32 municipalities will see the installation of lighthouses, because we will work with one of these lighthouses where we do diagnostic by using PREDIAP. Next one. You have 1 minute. Very quickly, objective number 5 is to provide support to the Cordillera Pehuenche CIPAN as a sustainability governance model. The tool, the PREDIAP tool, was born as part of the agroecologic transition manual, which was work between CEP, INDAP, and FAO. And this initiative became digital through this tool. So PREDIAP starts, as Evelyn said, starts in the territory, in the Cordillera Pehuenche territory, where it is applied. And for us, it is key to provide support to this territory, and not only provide support, but also hopefully so that it is recognized in the application to the World Farming Heritage System. If we continue. In order to do that, there have been several actions that we have conducted, and diagnostic tasks, 140 people in DAP in this region. We had 706 people in the outreach teams working with 75,000 families. 140 people have been already trained in the PREDIAP. We have applied in these lighthouse schools with these implementations. However, they were applied more than in 79 that were chosen as lighthouse schools in the SIPAN districts. PREDIAP has been introduced as a tool to devise or to prepare work plans, the PTAs and the 3 districts, and also some internships in agreements with the Universidad de la Frontera. This diagnostic methodology has been introduced with the student community as well. This was already shown by Evelyn in one of the agroecologic lighthouse schools. This was how the diagnostic took place, and this spiderweb chart shows the different aspects that are diagnosed from the point of view of agroecologic principles and practices. Next one. This is the last one, because for INDAP, applying PREDIAP is a tool that has allowed outreach professionals and growers not only to look at this industry, but to look at the plot in all its complexity, and to look at it from the point of view of the complexity of the system and of the agroecology principles that allows us to progress among different programs provided by INDAP to an agroecologic transition. And the purpose of it is a part of a context of climate change today. So it is a tool that allows us to make good decisions at the territorial level. This is how the INDAP work is framed. Thank you very much for this opportunity and for being able to be part of this meeting. Thank you, Pablo, and I'd like to thank Evelyn for sharing today's experience and for showing this digital tool that, as you said, allows to plan, to make decisions, and also to take note of the changes that take place at a plot level, but always with a landscape logic. Thank you very much once again to participants. If you have questions about the different experiences that have been developed or described during this session, please leave your questions in the chat to be able to answer those during the event. So now we go to the second initiative, which is about a project developed in the Caribbean, specifically in Belize, Dominica, Guyana, and St. Lucia, which is committed to strengthening the value chains of certain products of these countries by making productive improvements to improve their quality. Let's take a look at the video of this interesting experience.
Throughout the Caribbean, there is a rich history of agriculture and an ever-growing food import bill, plus high susceptibility to the impacts of climate change. By using a market-oriented approach for the sustainable development of food value chains, FAO is supporting Caribbean countries to reduce their food imports, increase exports, and attract private sector investment in high-potential value chains. In Belize, the Commonwealth of Dominica, the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, Saint Lucia, and several other Caribbean countries, the FAO Sub-Regional Office for the Caribbean is working with government agencies, the private sector, and development partners to transform food and agriculture industries using this market-oriented approach to value chain development. The highly participatory and inclusive approach relies on the effective engagement and coordination between private and public sector value chain stakeholders to promote ownership of the development of high-potential value chains. It combines market research, a rapid production assessment, an examination of the roles of women and youth, and the risks of climate to identify the range of critical constraints and the opportunities to overcome them to build resilient industries. So far, using the approach has led to the design and implementation of industry upgrading strategies, selection of best fit solutions to improve production, which increases opportunities for formalizing agreements between buyers and farmers, as well as increased technical knowledge and capacity among public and private sector stakeholders. This multi-pronged approach also involves the development of business models to demonstrate the income-earning potential for farmers and is vital in securing investor buy-in. Investment and development finance in various industries will strengthen them and provide the requisite funding to ensure industry sustainability. Working on high-potential value chains offers direct economic benefits to those involved in these industries and to consumers who crave quality products originating from the Caribbean. FAO continues to support governments in transforming and building more resilient and competitive agriculture and food systems as we look to a future of lower food import bills, secure livelihoods, and thriving economies.
It is interesting to see how this allows us to know more of what is the progress that is made regarding the strengthening of local economies by considering increasing the technical capabilities of producers as well as creating networks and their development from a participatory approach. Either growers, private sector, government, or development organizations with a market guiding criterion. In order to know more about this project, we'd like to invite Charlene Prosser, who is an agricultural value chain development specialist. Charlene, please, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Give me one moment. Hi. Good morning, colleagues. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you again for inviting us to participate and to share more about a regional technical cooperation project focused on transforming industries using a market-driven approach to value chain development. My name is Charlene Prosser. I'm an agricultural value chain development consultant. I'm joined by Juan Chiez, economist and trade and markets officer, and both of us will be speaking on behalf of FAO SLC's value chain team today. The value chain development approach promotes joint collaborative work with various stakeholders in a structured and phased process and evidence-based approach that enhances the performance of the value chain so that all can benefit. It is a highly participatory approach that invites stakeholder ownership, input, and involvement in the development of the value chain. It is also practical, hands-on, and action-oriented with comprehensive strategies based on sound analysis and evidence. And central to this approach is improving the capacity of the public sector agencies to engage effectively with private sector actors and align agendas behind a common market-oriented vision of strengthening key agricultural value chains. The integrated value chain approach is a model for high potential value chains that can be replicated in other contexts for development of agricultural sectors across the Caribbean region and in other countries. The value chain development methodology, which has been adapted for the Caribbean region, forms the basis of our work. There are 4 main steps, beginning with step 1, value chain selection, step 2, value chain analysis, Step 3, upgrading strategy development, and Step 4, implementation of a pilot program. Each step is linked to a specific evidence-based processes, data collection and assessment tools, applied training, and project outputs. This project aimed to identify those crops with viable market opportunities on which economically sustainable business models can be built with private sector investors. And the next steps continue with close collaboration and coordination in working with ministry, partners, and public and private sector stakeholders to carefully assess the selected value chain, identify market opportunities and critical bottlenecks, and jointly develop a 5-year upgrading strategy plan for industry development. The last step is focus on implementation of prioritized areas of the strategic plan through a commercial pilot program throughout the remaining project duration. Business model development for bringing in increased investment and financing and private sector engagement builds on many of the elements from all these steps and is an integral part of the entire approach. Through all of this, we work closely with national value chain teams to build applied knowledge and experience of the value chain development process. The national teams would continue to take the implementation of the strategy forward beyond the life of the project. With all 4 countries in this project, our focus is on creating competitive and resilient industries with strong business models that can support public and private partnerships and private sector investment. Investments in the value chain ensures that there is industry sustainability and profitability. Further, we also assess the value chain through a sustainability lens, inclusive of climate risk, gender, and youth inclusion. We've also introduced new or innovative technology or methods to resolve any challenges or issues with production, with some examples shown here. The approach is adaptable and flexible, depending on the challenges and opportunities presented. There are several key considerations that should be considered for project implementation. It is important to employ an evidence-based process. This includes using analytical tools for market assessment, value chain selection, cost of production analysis, business modeling, and technical inputs from production experts to address production issues as well as supply-side constraints. Strong facilitation and utilizing a participatory approach are key for the success of achieving project outcomes. The participatory approach aims to work directly from the beginning with a national team composed of staff from the Ministry of Agriculture or other relevant agencies to jointly undertake all value chain activities. Structured meetings and workshops with facilitated discussion are held continually with stakeholders and the national value chain teams. It is very critical to bring together a strong national value chain team and to operationalize a cohesive response for industry upgrading. The achievement of the project outcomes depends highly on the commitment of government counterparts. In order to ensure ongoing sustainability and impact, this approach has demonstrated good results in generating national ownership and capacity building. The accumulated knowledge and experience with value chain development enables national teams to be in a strong position to oversee continued implementation of the industry strategic plan. Thank you very much again. I hope this has been informative, and you can always reach out to us if you'd like to learn more.
Gracias, Charlene. Sí, ha sido muy informativa, ya que nos has presentado los pasos y las principales consideraciones que conllevan a la
Thank you for talking about the various steps involved in this process. And in order to delve deeper into this topic, I would like to invite Juan Cheas Peláez, who's an economist, Head of Trade and Markets of the Sub-Regional Office of the Caribbean. So, Juan, you have 5 minutes. Please put your presentation in presentation mode. Thank you, Ana. Thank you, Charlene. Can you see the presentation in the correct mode? No, not yet. Now we can. Thank you. I have to speak in English in honor of my colleagues and the work that we do
in the region, which is in English. What I'm going to do is to round up some of the key points that you would have already seen in the video and also expressed by Charlene. Some of the one of those points has to do with how this initiative links with FAO strategic framework. Specifically, we are targeting, this known and very, let's say, important initiative that is the CARICOM 25 by 2025 strategy, which has been endorsed by all heads of state in the Caribbean. The idea being of reducing the import bill by 25% in a number of priority commodities. The way that we are contributing to that is by creating strong national value chains. It is impossible to substitute imports and to enhance trade regionally if you don't have these strong value chains characterized mainly by collaboration among the different actors. So this is one way that the project that has been presented links to some of FAO's strategic initiatives. Also in the private sector, you would have seen that the target is to create a pilot program and to attract, private sector actors to invest once a number of business models, that are evidence-based have been built. This is an important contribution and experience on how we engage with private sector, which, as you all know, it's something that the organization has to prioritize as a condition for actually achieving transformation in food systems. I also like to highlight that the process that Charlene expressed about being evidence-based, it's challenging, but we have been creative and adaptable by not only resorting to existing data, which sometimes is not easy, but also by developing a number of tools, including farmer surveys, stakeholder surveys, and by talking to experts on the field to complement the data or to get the data that sometimes is not available in an open and ready way. The whole issue of working in a participatory manner is critical for appropriation. This focus on ownership at the stakeholders so that they can continue the work afterwards along that pathway that Charlene expressed of 4 to 5 years once the project is finished is critical. If we don't have this ownership, then the project begins, and after 2 years, then not much is going to happen. And we know that it is limited what one particular project with limited resources and limited time can achieve. So therefore, the importance of involving, developing capacity and creating ownership. This is an approach that is organized, it is systematic, it is phased, and as such, it allows participants, it allows ministry staff and other stakeholders to follow a common pathway. Some of the key lessons that we can draw to close up is this central focus on capacity building, as I just mentioned, the idea being of bringing understanding to different stakeholders, particularly farmers and ministry staff, about the evidence-based approach and market-oriented principles, and therefore empowering people so that they can independently and autonomously apply this in other projects, in other chains in the future. With this ownership comes and participation comes appropriation, and with appropriation then comes sustainability. Using the integrated approach requires multidisciplinary and collaborative work across different sectors. Producers alone cannot do the job, but the buyers alone cannot do the job, the ministry cannot work alone, so we need to try to cross-pollinate the different project interventions with the participation and expertise of the different actors in the chain. Not all countries have the different capacity to implement, they all have the different challenges, they have different endowments in terms of production, in terms of institutional arrangements. So the approach, while being structured, it is flexible to build on the conditions that exist on the ground. And finally, conditions for upscaling and attracting future investment. Again, we have realized that 2 years is not enough to achieve, like the end goal of upscaling, of creating sustained access to markets, and ultimately improving incomes of the different actors in the value chains of well-being. And to that end, there are a number of strategic upgrades that need to be made that one project cannot do. Therefore, we have brought in, innovative business models that are capable of attracting both investment and development finance. It is argued that For every, for example, 1 million of investment finance, we need 250,000 of development finance. So we need to have an approach that allows to bring, the complementary development funds to keep upgrading and upscaling, but also to create investment from the private sector to bring this change to the next level. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias a ti, Juan, por sobre todo recalcar la importancia de los
Thank you,
roles.
Juan, for especially highlighting the role of the different actors in this network, and also for showing that value chains provide opportunities for innovative transformation, and also to look for efficiency in the process towards what we consider a better production. And in line with that, I'd like to ask you and Charlene a question that comes from our audience, which is, what is the impact that private investment attraction has had in transforming the industry and the development of sustainable value chains in the Caribbean countries that have been working on this initiative?
We can give one concrete example, which is the most mature activity. Actually, it's an intervention that happened in Jamaica, and now we have already exited that. We follow the process that has been explained so far throughout. We facilitated a public-private partnership and created the conditions, on the ground for upscaling. And of course, there would always be issues remaining in terms of production issues, of infrastructure, of facilities, lab facilities to sustain the process, for example, for having continuous access to clean planting material. But because of the maturity of the change and because the relationships that were forged with that process, the United States Department for Agriculture, as part of the Food for Progress program, decided to choose two countries 1 year ago to support. One was in Peru and the other one was herbs and spices, ginger in Jamaica. They provided $20 million. That has basically revamped the industry and put it in a position whereby 10 years ago or 5 years ago, the ginger industry was basically decimated. It didn't exist because of the rhizome rot, because of the disease. And through the intervention that we did on that side and also on the value chain support, you have a country, with an industry that is in a new place.
Muchas gracias, Juan. En caso que Charlene quiera comentar
Thank
algo
you,
más.
Juan. In case Charlene wants to comment, could you please stop sharing your presentation?
No sé si quisieras complementar algo más a la pregunta que se formuló.
Would you like to supplement that answer?
Yes, I would like to add to what Juan is saying. So definitely we are seeing a lot of impact from private sector engagement. I could give the example of Dominica, where before there was not a production base, and now within a year's time frame, not only have we introduced the commercial variety of sea moss or seaweed, in other words, but we're also seeing a growing production base. So we're seeing at least 30 farmers who are cultivating this commercial species. And week after week, we are hearing that there has been more production increase, where before they were importing a lot of sea moss from other neighboring countries. Now they're able to harvest hundreds of pounds of sea moss. And I think that is really positive news. And I think it speaks to the value chain development methodology. Thank you very much.
Gracias a ti, Charlene. Y en el caso
Thank
de
you, Charlene. In the case of Evelyn and Pablo, maybe to ask you, how do you see these types of tools, such as PREDIAP, to go beyond the agendas of other institutions in such a way that there can also be a transformative environment from the application of this type of digital tools? Well, in this case, Pablo had to leave the meeting, but I think it is key in this case to understand that PREDIAP is a tool, and it will be alive as long as active participation takes place, active participation of the farming outreach teams together with the growers themselves, the farmers, so that there's continuous dialogue and permanent or ongoing training. And together with INDAP, there are instances in which the app became part of the annual work plans, at least in the Cordillera Pehuenche territory. And it's a way so that they can start their first diagnostic attempt through PREDIAP and come up with annual work plans with a purpose of having an overall diagnostic for the plot and to work in the short, medium, and long term using actual information. And this is how this is expanded because PREDIAP is a tool. However, agroecologic transition is something that is being addressed by INDAP in the different programs. And this is also used as an input, not only as a diagnostic tool, but because we are going beyond the project context in the 12 districts or municipalities, in this case, 8 in the north and 4 of them in the south in Chile. And as the director said, to be able to use this methodology actually as a diagnostic tool, but these beacon schools that he mentioned in the Araucanía region, it's a major step, and we're very happy with it because it is sort of a legacy. Because a project may be completed, but the public institution will keep on working on this. In this case, we are talking about INDAP. Thank you, Evelyn. Thank you for your contribution. Let me remind the attendees, you can ask your questions or make comments through the social media using hashtag Transforma, FAO Transforma. We'd like to know your opinion about the different initiatives as well as your questions and general comments about what's going on in this event. In this way, we'd like to go to another project that are part of this segment. First of all, I'd like to introduce a Colombian experience that will share how sovereignty, food security and sovereignty can be strengthened with the participation of communities. This is a project that was jointly implemented by the Territory Renewal Agency of Colombia, and I'd like to leave you with a video.
Tumaco, un territorio con múltiples bondades para la producción de alimentos, ha sido escenario de conflictos que han ocasionado un aislamiento de sus comunidades y la imposibilidad de comercializar lo que se produce, limitando así la capacidad de autonomía alimentaria.
Entonces, esto nos ayuda a fortalecer a un tema en la situación que estamos, todo lo que tiene que ver en los cultivos ilícitos también, ¿no? Eso nos ha afectado tanto el grupo armado como los cultivos ilícitos, que cuando hay eso ya el tema productivo se ha ido olvidando y entonces todo se consume de afuera, todo se trae de afuera.
Mediante el respaldo del Gobierno Nacional y la Agencia de Renovación del Territorio, ART, se enfocó en impulsar la actividad productiva en comunidades étnicas. Se fortalecieron 6 unidades productivas de tilapia roja en 4 comunidades, beneficiando a cerca de 100 familias y promoviendo el mercado local como parte de la ejecución del Acuerdo de Paz. Además, se vinculó directamente a las organizaciones comunitarias para construir los estanques. Se capacitó a jóvenes locales como promotores comunitarios en la actividad piscícola, teniendo la comunidad un lugar central en toda la intervención. La iniciativa contempló una gira técnica para aprender de otras agrupaciones y mejorar la eficiencia del negocio, dejando enlaces en el territorio para continuar con los procesos de formación. Ahora las comunidades cuentan con los equipos necesarios para producir su propio alimento para los peces de forma autónoma y comercializar la tilapia bajo condiciones técnicas y sanitarias adecuadas.
Pues algunas comunidades y algunas familias donde ha estado el ART, el medio de los PD, pues lo que nos ha hecho es fortalecernos, ¿no?
La empatía, toda esa sinergia que hemos generado con el equipo humano que ha llegado alrededor de este proyecto es lo que hace que hoy estemos en el nivel que estamos y con la proyección que tenemos.
Yo creo que la piscicultura es la construcción del camino hacia la paz, porque alejaría a muchos jóvenes de las calles, ante todo.
Que estos proyectos son importantes, totalmente importantes, fundamentales, además de aportar alimento disponible a la comunidad, también se vuelve espejo para que los otros jóvenes que de pronto por el tamaño de nuestra unidad no estén vinculados directamente puedan ver a Marisa, puedan ver a Daniel y puedan ver a los que estamos acá como un referente de que hay otras alternativas y que se pueden hacer cosas diferentes a la que hace aproximadamente 28 años, 26 años llegó a nuestro territorio como fue la coca.
En Tumaco juntos sembramos semillas de paz.
Y para conocer un poco más sobre esta linda iniciativa, invitamos a José Nelson.
We'd like to invite Jose Nelson Camelo. Jose Nelson is a coordinator of the project. Please, Jose Nelson, you have 5 minutes. I'll let you know when you need to stop. Thank you. I'd like to greet everyone. First, I'd like to thank you for the invitation to share this experience that we hope will be useful to the audience. I'd like to show my presentation. Please, if you let me know. If you can click on presentation mode, thank you. Okay, this project, you saw the video already, is part of the overall strategy of the Colombian government in the implementation of the peace agreement, in which FAO is our partner from the very beginning. When the agreement was signed, is one of the communities that belongs to a municipality of the areas that involved 170 municipalities. So this is only one of those initiatives. I will try to go quickly through these three components, reinforcing the video message and leaving some recommendations for the work in the future. First of all, regarding the summary information, the execution period took 18 months. That's also a lesson regarding the kind of intervention in the short term that you can make. Among the 100 families, we had one Afro-descendant community and an indigenous community. That means a second approach, which is the one about ethnicity approach, and approach from the point of view of the communities themselves. In terms of resources, just for you to have an idea, the order of magnitude is $270,000 approximately, and we worked in these 4 communities establishing 6 units, which means the adaptation, construction of 23 tanks and 4 water reservoirs, and the amount of alevines that were introduced were 100,000. That was the end of the first cycle. Now, regarding the components, I'm going through this very quickly. Component 1 would be productive units. We worked with the communities themselves through direct contracts, from the construction of these ponds to the marketing of this production. And this also gives us a lesson learned that it is possible, because to contact these organizations that beyond production itself, they may perform other roles. The work in the units was done from time 0 up to the marketing of these, linking growers and in particular youth, so that they would actually continue the work, continue being trained, so that they could operate the project in the future. So this was a learning by doing, and the school in this case were the ponds themselves. This is a picture of our youth working. This is something that I'd like to highlight. Young people, 5 of them, and out of those 5, 3 are women. And at the end of the exercise, these units kept on operating. We hope we can go back and check them for that is component number 1. Component 2 is to do organizational strengthening so that they can operate the business. They started from 0, and that meant fulfilling the law. Here in Colombia, you need some permits for water users and the implementation of the fish farming units. So this is a 4th metric, which is the institutional alliances that need to be established with government entities that provide training, others that are regulators, and others that do monitoring, and an articulation with the territory, specifically the financial alternatives that exist that may provide resources to scale up these initiatives. Something important as well is that two tours were taken, so that by learning by doing, on the one hand, visiting a company, for example, that operates this type of fish farming projects, and other similar organizations that were a little bit ahead. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more. This is a picture of one of those technical tours. And this is the message that you can organize a functional, sustainable business, and that the same community can produce food or provide technical assistance, and also to manage the business at the same time. Human capital strengthening individually and also at the organizational level in order to operate these 6 units. And the last component is the business management, because on the one hand, the units were enabled, but also people were trained to operate them, and they were provided with tools, inputs, and equipment. And the third component, what I want to mention, is we were able to set up customers in a market in the territory to take this production, emphasizing on the fact that part of that production, and that was mentioned in the video, is devoted to the same communities, the very communities, at a better price, or as a part of their overall production strategy for their own consumption. You have 1 minute, which is part of the human right to food. And here I'd like to only highlight the gender approach, which was key for this exercise. And these are the lessons learned that we'd like to leave as a message. First, the territorial approach, the analysis of the territory that is done, not only a specific community, but the dynamic of a certain territory in order to prioritize the activities. The same community has been doing that prioritization. The ethnic, youth, gender approaches, and also the right to food, direct contracts with the communities and with the organizations, an articulation to local markets, because these projects were actually an example of economic reactivation. And in the Tumaco zone, well, business alliances were established. And finally, regarding planning in the medium and long term, because as part of the peace agreement, work schedule covers until 2030, and that is the one that is being implemented in the country. This is also a key message, that to build this vision collectively in the midterm is important for the initiatives such as the one that we showed in the video. That is what I had to tell you in these 5 minutes, and I'll be paying attention to your questions. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jose, for showing us these lessons learned, but also for highlighting the importance of empowering women, men, and the youth that are being part of this initiative, and for their enthusiasm in transforming their environment. And so we'd like to give the floor to Lilian Rodriguez Flores. She is the Deputy Director of Economic Development of the Agency for Territorial Renewables, so that she can give us her comments about Jose's presentation. You have 5 minutes, Lilia.
Good morning. Please let me know if you can see my screen. Yes, we can. You can see one slide. Perhaps you could move forward, move on to the next one. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Lilian Rodriguez Flores. I am the Deputy Director of Economic Development of the Agency for Territorial Renewal. This ATR agency is in charge of addressing the implementation nationwide of what we call the PEDETs, which are the programs, territorial-based development programs. So just some quick context for you. You know that back in 2016, the national government signed with the FARC a final agreement for conflict termination and for building stable and long-lasting peace. Now, under that agreement, they refer to the PDETs, which are these territorial-based development programs. And so the PDETs were organized for 170 municipalities located in 19 departments. Now, what were the criteria used to choose the municipalities? One, multidimensional poverty. Two, institutional weaknesses of the mayor's offices or of the municipal governments, and then the presence of illicit crops, cocaine, marijuana, etc., and municipalities that have been historically affected by the armed conflict. Now, just let me mention as well that this was a very participatory selection process. According to the Kroc Institute, more than 220,000 individuals from rural communities took part in this process. And at the base stage, we had individuals from 11,000 villages, rural villages, taking part in this participatory process. And they defined their greatest needs, and we call these initiatives, and a total of 33,007 initiatives were presented. And that is where we started the intervention process. So implementing the PDETs involved meeting the needs defined under the 33,000 initiatives. Allow me to quickly mention the various contexts for community agreement, community participation. First, we have the driver groups, and these groups consist of delegates from the villages in each municipality, and that is where we that's where we try to guarantee effective participation, broad-based and plural participation of all the actors in the territory. And then we have what we call the MEX, and this is an opportunity for the authorities in the areas to take part in a special consultation. So specifically in the indigenous and Afro-descendant communities. And then we have the PNISs, which were providing an opportunity for the community assembly delegates to take part, and the national authority delegates as well. And these foster gender participation, etc. So what has the ART proposed for the 4-year program under the PDET? First, to transform these 170,000 territories where we have the PDETs rolled out, and also to work with the PNISs, which are the territories where we are substituting illicit crops, and those areas primarily affected by violence and the presence of cocaine, poppy, or marijuana, and all to transform these for better life and total peace. And this is in keeping with the transcendental purpose of the government related to change, and that is to make Colombia a global power of life, for life. And we have harmonized this with our national development plan as well, which is shown here on this graph. I'm not going to explain it all in detail, but at the heart, the core, we have the National Development Plan with its 5 key transformations as proposed by the government to bring about change. And what we propose is to make sure that these 5 transformations reach the 170,000 PDET municipalities in order to secure implementation of the final agreement. And here we have a graphic representation of how the 5 components of the PND are actually harmonized and related to the 8 pillars of the PDET, and which the national sectoral plans of the integral transformation. This is all part of the final agreement. You have 1 minute. Now, the strategic plan has 4 key strategic areas. 1, territorial transformation. 2, income substitution, so that we can move away from illicit crops and towards licit economies, and institutional strengthening. And 1 more. Now, how has this project of adapting and building pisciculture or fish farming tanks for producing tilapia in Tumaco is actually a model for peace building and how it has allowed to recognize the diversity of each territory. That's one of the things that we can say that has been an outcome, I guess you could say. We've heard from Maritza, who took place, a young woman, and from other people who were involved in this project. We've heard from FAO representatives as well. And so these experiences allow us to take the territorial approach and bring it down to a practical level, and allows us to have these experiences and replicate these. This, of course, is a challenge and an opportunity by the national government of change. So that is the presentation I have for you as the Territorial Renewal Agency. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your experiences with us, both of you, Jose and Lillian. I would just like to remind the participants to leave their questions in the chat box or on the Zoom chat box or on the YouTube channel. Now we will move on to the last project of this block. We will learn about a project in Costa Rica developed thanks to collaboration between the Costa Rican Institute of Fisheries and Aquaculture and FAO. This project has sought to support the social, economic, and environmental transformation of small mollusk producers in the sector, promoting training and the formalization of organizations. It also has a very interesting component that sought to develop mangrove restoration strategies and important ecosystems where these resources are harvested. So here you have a video on the mangrove women experience.
Mi nombre es Araceli Jiménez Mora, soy la presidenta de Copemolusco Chomes. Vivimos en Chomes, Punta Arenas, en la costa pacífica de Costa Rica, y les vamos a mostrar cómo es nuestra labor diaria en la extracción de moluscos. Recolectamos mejillones, pianguas, almejas y choras. Estos productos se comercializan en la comunidad y esto nos ha ayudado, ¿verdad?, llevarle el sustento a nuestras familias.
Entre el año 2017 y el 2018, mediante un proceso de capacitación y acompañamiento técnico, con apoyo de la FAO, junto al Gobierno de Costa Rica y Coope Solidar, las mujeres lograron asociarse y conformar la cooperativa compuesta por 40 mujeres y 12 hombres.
Creo que uno de los retos más grandes que tenemos es poder comercializar el producto de una forma justa.
Para complementar sus ventas y la captura diaria, las mujeres venden empanadas, ceviche, pescado y platos precocinados con productos locales. Reciben los pedidos a través de aplicaciones de mensajería o las redes sociales.
Porque con esto no solamente nos alimentamos, no solamente tenemos un salario para comer y pagar nuestros gastos, también hemos podido ayudarle a nuestros hijos que se superen.
En la actualidad, la cooperativa no solo depende de la riqueza del manglar, sino que también se dedica a la preservación y restauración de estos ecosistemas, avanzando hacia un enfoque de manejo sostenible y resiliente, tal como lo promueve la FAO.
Nosotros comenzamos primeramente limpiando los manglares, construimos el vivero, después fuimos a buscar las plántulas y se deja alrededor de 1 mes y medio, 2 meses. Y después se va a reforestar a una zona donde no haya tanto mangle y que sea una zona apta, ¿verdad? El taller de trabajo y empleo decente cambió la perspectiva de las mujeres. Hemos comprendido que nosotras tenemos derecho a tener un trabajo decente, derecho a tener un trabajo digno, derecho a tener un seguro social, derecho a ser reconocidas, que nuestra actividad sea reconocida, y más aún que las mujeres creímos que nuestro trabajo era tan digno como cualquier otro tipo de trabajo.
Y para profundizar un poco más sobre esta
And
iniciativa,
in order to delve deeper into this initiative, I would like to invite Andrea Padilla to speak. She is an assistant program representative. Your 5 minutes, Andrea. Thank you, Ana. Greetings to everyone joining us here today. I do not have a presentation per se, rather I will just talk for 5 minutes. Starting in 2015, we began working with the Costa Rican Institute for Fisheries and Agriculture in order to reduce rural poverty and contribute to food security by way of strengthening the institutions and the organizations working in the area of fisheries and aquaculture, but at the small scale in Costa Rica. Included therein are the producer cooperatives of mussels and shellfish, and then small scale producers as well. So in that context, from 2016 to 2017, we identified some strategic issues for us, for the communities, and for the government within the framework of the voluntary guidelines for small-scale fisheries. Essentially, the issues were governance, sustainable resource management,
Andrea, estamos teniendo problemas de conexión.
Apparently, Andrea, okay, decent work, gender equality, climate change, and value chains. We can hear you. Go ahead.
Enfocamos en estos temas para generar.
So we focused on these key issues when building capacity through training. And as a result, we strengthened the capacity of local actors in these coastal communities. For example, the Cope Moluscos Tomes cooperative that we saw in the video. I think this video is quite telling of the cooperative's experience. This is a cooperative primarily consisting of women. 39 women and 7 men are the members of this cooperative, and they harvest mollusks, as we saw, and there are 4 specific species that they mentioned in the video: clams, mussels, and 2 others. These mollusks are extracted and harvested manually on the beaches and in the mangroves. And obviously the beaches are harvested at low tide. And they set up a cooperative after a red tide affected their production for 8 months back in 2013. And they realized that they needed to work together in an organized fashion, because one of the main challenges of this small-scale artisanal fishery sector and mollusk harvesting sector is working together. So we focused on that. In 2016, they conducted a process to boost institutional know-how, and then they conducted their own study on the status of mollusks, and they submitted a participatory plan relative to mollusk harvesting. This was submitted to the Ministry of Wetlands, Coast, and Bodies of Waters, and to the Conservation Department of the Ministry of the Environment and Energy, and then as well submitted to this Costa Rican Institute of Fisheries and Agriculture. In 2017, they were granted a license to harvest one of these 4 species of mollusks, and then they were able to have access to other resources from the Institute for Women, and that institute works with social protection, and they helped them strengthen the various initiatives that they have been working on for a while. These women are very committed to the environment and social well-being, their own and their communities and their children's. And you can see in the video that there was a very key component of their activities where they involved the Ministry of Security and where they were trained in labor rights and decent work aspects. And at present, they do not just harvest mollusks, but they have diversified their livelihoods and have also carried out other activities related to ecotourism. This is where they have faced additional challenges and they have solved other problems. This is a key this area is a very well-known tourist attraction, and so they have worked on restoring the mangroves where they work and live. So we think this initiative has had a widespread impact on the ecosystem of the mangroves, as well as on empowering the women in this community. With regard to governance and decision-making relative to local resources, these two attributes have been strengthened as well. And that's what I have to say.
Thank you. And I'd like to have Mr. Jose Centeno, head of cooperation of the Costa Rican Institute of Fisheries and Aquaculture. You have 5 minutes, Jose. Thank you, Ana. And I'd like to thank you for inviting us to be part of this initiative of FAO Transforma. Personally, I didn't know it, and I'm really happy to be familiar with it now, and congratulations for the efforts you are making. FAO is an organization, international organization that in the specific case of Costa Rica has been helping us in a number of projects, and specifically in this project within the framework of the voluntary guidelines for sustainable and responsible fisheries. We have worked hand in hand with FAO Costa Rica office, and of course this project that my colleague Andrea Padilla commented on has the purpose of improving the livelihoods of the people, especially women. And in fact, this is also about contributing with fisheries resources sustainability, which is part of the major objectives of Incopesca in the transformation of fisheries. This project has been very important, specifically because through it, we've tried to formalize women by granting them permits so that they can conduct the extraction of piangua, of this species, creating jobs as well, which is so important. It is a key topic that impacts the fishing activities and is very much having an impact on fisher women. The intent from Incopesca is to train them, inform them on processes related to the marketing of their products, empowering them as well, empowering them in the activities that they conduct. And of course, this is also connected to the importance of conducting the restoration of mangroves. Something very important is the type of association working on the strengthening of association, especially in artisanal small-scale fisheries that are very vulnerable populations. Lots of training is required for these associations. 73% approximately of the communities, fishermen, fisherwomen are integrated to fishermen and women associations or through cooperatives. And this effort is very important because, in fact, this is a major strength to even take part or to have access to resources in other government institutions. As Andrea Padilla mentioned, the National Women Institute has resources to support them in these initiatives. In order to do that, they need to be organized. Basically, promoting women in production alternatives is extremely important. So we are really thankful to FAO and especially FAO Costa Rica for the support they have given the Costa Rican Fisheries and Aquaculture Institute in an initiative like this. Of course, it is not the only initiative in which we collaborate, we also work on other initiatives that we are carrying out. Thank you again, and congratulations once again for this great job that you're doing. Thank you, Jose and Andrea, for sharing a valuable experience because of strengthening fisheries systems from a resilient and sustainable point of view or of the ecosystem, but also for showing the result of an intersectoral approach and for being able to have the engagement of empowered women and also those who own economic, social, and environmental transformative processes in those communities. So thank you so much for such a project, very, very important. So I would like to now move to a second round of questions today. For the Colombian team, we have a question, and it is the following. What is the opportunity that exists in order to relate to similar initiatives towards economic reactivation and the transition from illicit economies in the same region or other regions in Colombia that you may know? Well, thank you. I believe the answer, I believe my colleagues are already left the meeting. As Lilian said, in the region, in the area, there is an institutional scaffolding to funnel the initiatives. My recommendation would be is that they should contact the group of stakeholders. Possibly they are discussing the production activities, and the information we have is that fish farming and fisheries, because this is also an important port in Colombia, have been prioritized. And since they have been prioritized, usually these are additional initiatives are organized to scale up what's being done, and so the invitation is that through this group or through our group, I believe you have our information, our contact information. We are able to approach you. If you don't have the contact information, we can probably put you in contact with our representatives in the territory to connect with this activity. Because if it is prioritized, there will be so much more activity in the time that is left for the implementation of the peace agreement until 2030. This is from me, and I'm going to post my email address on the chat for those of you who would like to contact me for further answers or so. Thank you. Thank you. Lilian, I don't know if you'd like to comment. If not, I could go to a second question for the Costa Rican team. I think they had to leave the meeting. Okay, no problem. So let me go to Andrea and also to ask the following. Just whether the results that you have obtained with the project in the area, have you been able to go beyond the boundaries in going into other regions, other economic groups? Have you been able to scale up this initiative and connect it to other initiatives in Costa Rica? No, please, you can answer, Jose. Okay. Thank you, Anna, for your question. It is a very relevant question. Really, we have been working on the issue of empowering women in the fisheries area. Of course, the experience with women has been replicated in Puerto Cortes, for example, with the mollusk farmers there in southern Colombia. We have implemented a project that has the same guidelines of these efforts that FAO has been supporting with the Chomes women. So really, the experience in this project has had a multiplying effect, not only because of the concern about Chomes, but also that extends to the northern Colombia. So the contributions and inputs from this experience with FAO, from Incopesca, are being replicated in other areas of the country. Thank you, Jose. Andrea, would you like to supplement that? Yes, I fully agree with Jose mentions. Thank you, Jose. I think, as he said, the experience has been applied elsewhere, maybe not as such, because contexts are different. It needs to be adapted, but most of all, strategy that was identified to work as we mentioned, the whole organization aspects and alliances in these types of communities and organizations, and where sometimes organizational aspects are somewhat weak. Training, for example, marketing, governance of the activity has been key to work in other areas of the country so that more and more communities become engaged in the management of their own resources. And that would be it from me. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Jose. So we need to close this segment. I'd just like to thank the speakers that have been with us today, this morning. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences, your lessons learned that are great experiences, the ones that we've been able to hear about, and they have shown how important it is, the role of communities, being an example that better production cannot be done without people in connection with systems and the other stakeholders. That's why we should include them to achieve actual transformation that will guarantee consumption and sustainable production by strengthening production, transformation, and marketing chains and supply chains. In the livestock, of fisheries, agricultural context, of all the sectors that are involved in better production. They need to provide equitable access to resources and digital technology, increasing their capabilities, building networks from a perspective that addresses the vulnerable groups. Finally, ecosystems must be taken into consideration, considering the changing environmental and climate conditions and how these environmental and climatic scenarios are changing, and what their impacts are on production. This is why we highlight the importance of promoting the regeneration and the implementation of best practices in production in order to avoid the degradation of agroecosystems. The ecosystemic conservation approach and sustainable use of agrobiodiversity, either because of pollinizers, seeds, insects, as well as of the resources, including soils, water, and forestry, and sea, must be part of innovative transformation. And with this, we close the best production segment. Thank you all to panelists and attendees that have joined us during this segment and throughout this morning session that brought us such rich proposals. Next, I'd like to leave the floor to Matthias. Thank you very much. Thank you, Anna, to all of you who participated in the discussions and Q&As. I'd like to thank the panelists, especially that gave us significant contributions that are useful to reflect on the work that has been done, but also serve as inspiration for future projects. This is a fair that is about inspiration, precisely. Today, we were able to learn about the experience of FAO Managers Network at the regional office in America and how it contributes to the project development. On the other hand, in the better production segment, we were able to listen to 4 transformative projects to promote food security and sustainable development in Belize, the Dominican Republic, Guyana, and St. Lucia. Work has been done in order to strengthen the value chains of local products, which has reduced imports and increased exports. This market-oriented approach has involved the training of growers, understanding market conditions, and collaboration between the public and private sectors. In Chile, at the same time, the Prediap mobile application has revolutionized farming planning and providing comprehensive farm diagnostics. In Colombia, sustainable fish farming has been supported in Tumaco, promoting food sovereignty and community development. Also, as we just heard, in Costa Rica, small-scale shellfish farmers have have been supported to improve their working conditions, promoting governance and the restoration of marine ecosystems. These projects are a good example of the efforts to strengthen food security and move toward sustainable development in the region. Just in closing now, and to say goodbye, once again, I'd like to we all thank each one of the participants in today's event and those who have been with us since yesterday. The invitation is for you to check details of the experiences on the event website. And this is the invitation to meet again tomorrow for the last day, September 15th, same time, same channel at 10 a.m. Santiago, Chile time, in which we will know about initiatives related to better life. So thank you very much and see you all.